Now, some of these posts are pretty aggressive here. Some of them, they're calling for just the outright murder of ICE officers. They're telling people, kill your local ICE police.
The war at the US-Mexico border has entered a chilling new phase. Cartels aren't just smuggling drugs and people anymore. They're hunting US Border Patrol agents. And their deadliest weapon? TikTok. What was once a platform for viral dances and influencer drama has become a powerful tool for cartels to glorify violence, recruit new members, and spread propaganda designed to incite chaos. They flash stacks of cash, luxury cars, and high-powered weapons, selling a dream of fast money and dangerous prestige to impressionable teenagers. Some are lured in by the promise of adventure, others by the raw power cartels seem to hold. And before they know it, they're in too deep. But the danger doesn't stop at recruitment. Cartels are now tracking US agents, using social media posts and live streams to pinpoint locations and plan ambushes. And with drones armed with explosives now in play, the violence is escalating fast, with rising tensions and the US considering designating these groups as terrorist organizations. The cartels are growing more ruthless, more unpredictable, and more willing to strike first. This isn't just a border crisis, it's a war, and it's being fought in real life and online. Let's dive in. Trump's first 2 weeks in office have been a flurry of activities, signing executive orders and making hardline moves. But one thing stood out: his warpath against the cartels. This isn't just about cracking down, it is about obliteration.
Our country is being poisoned from within by the drugs and by all of the other crime that's taking place. The drug cartels are waging war in America, and it's now time for America to wage war on the cartels.
One of his biggest plays was to officially label cartels as foreign terrorist organizations, the same category as ISIS and Al-Qaeda. He didn't have to spell it out, but everyone knew who he was aiming at: the Sinaloa cartel and CJNG. According to the DEA, these two aren't just running the drug trade, they've embedded themselves everywhere in the US, fueling what's now called the worst drug crisis in American history. And these groups, they aren't just dangerous, they're monstrous. The DEA's latest report paints a picture of sprawling, blood-soaked empires, secret drug labs in the shadows, smuggling routes carved through violence, and distribution hubs hidden in plain sight, especially near the southwest border. But drugs are not just the beginning. These organizations are deep in human trafficking, extortion, and even migrant smuggling. Their power isn't contained to Mexico and the US. Their reach extends across Europe, Africa, and Asia, a global web of crime built on suffering. And then there's China. According to DEA Administrator Ann Milgram, the cartels work with Chinese suppliers to get the chemicals they need for their deadly drug operations. The process is seamless: deadly substances cooked up in hidden labs, smuggled into the US, then sold on the streets, or worse, pushed through social media, targeting people who don't even know they're playing Russian roulette with their lives. Milgram also exposed the sinister money flow. Using Chinese laundering networks, the cartels send their blood money straight back to Mexico, fueling an endless cycle of crime, death, and corruption. Trump's made his intentions crystal clear. He's not just looking to weaken the cartels, he wants to wipe them off the face of the earth. His strategy? Dismantling their operations, cutting off their leadership, and hunting them down wherever they hide. By branding them as terrorists, Trump has opened the door to extreme measures. Cartel members could now land on international watch lists, face mass arrests, be barred from entering the US. And even worse, this classification hints at something more ominous: military action, airstrikes, direct hits on cartel strongholds in Mexico.
President Trump, if cartels are now going to be seen as foreign terror organizations, would you think about ordering U.S. Special Forces into Mexico to take them out?
Could happen. Stranger things have happened.
Trump didn't just stop at the cartels. He took things even further, declaring a national emergency at the southern border. His message? America's sovereignty is under attack. And with that, he ordered government agencies to immediately repel, remove, and deport undocumented immigrants, calling the situation an invasion.
As Commander-in-Chief, I have no higher responsibility than to defend our country from threats and invasions, and that is exactly what I am going to do. We will do it at a level that nobody's ever seen before.
With this declaration, Trump unlocked more funding to reinforce the border and wasted no time in reviving his long-abandoned border wall project. But the real cornerstone of his immigration crackdown? Mass deportations. The Defense Department has already been pulled in, announcing that military aircraft will be used to deport more than 5,000 detainees from Border Patrol facilities in San Diego and El Paso, Texas. And Trump's people aren't slowing down. ICE reports that on just the 4th day of his administration, over 1,000 people were deported. Border Czar Tom Homan made it clear, this is just the beginning. The numbers will only keep climbing. But not everyone is rolling over. On January 25th, Trump's deportation planes sparked an international standoff when Colombia straight up refused to let 2 U.S. military flights land. The country's president, Gustavo Petro, fired back, saying the U.S. can't treat Colombian migrants like criminals. He demanded they be treated with dignity. That resistance didn't last long. After the Trump administration threatened Colombia with tariffs, Petro's government backed down, agreeing to accept the flights. And Trump? He's not stopping there. He's revived a fast-track deportation policy from his first term, one that Biden had scrapped. Before, expedited deportations were only allowed within 100 miles of the U.S. border, applying only to those who couldn't prove a valid asylum case. But under Trump's new order, now, anywhere in the U.S. is fair game. Undocumented immigrants who can't prove they've been in the country for at least 2 years can now be rounded up and deported. No hearings, no delays, just gone.
President Trump is sending a very strong message to people around this world. If you are thinking about breaking the laws of the United States of America, you will be returned home, you will be arrested, you will be prosecuted. Do not come.
But let's be real, deportations aren't new. Biden did it too. In fiscal year 2024 alone, 271,000 undocumented immigrants were sent back to 192 countries. Across his full term, 1.5 million deportations, nearly identical to Trump's first term. And let's not forget Obama's numbers. He oversaw a staggering 2.9 million deportations in just 4 years. But Trump isn't just ramping up deportations, he's turning the border into a war zone. Since his latest order, the Pentagon has deployed 3,600 active duty troops to fortify the border, with another 500 from the 10th Mountain Division arriving on February 4th. Military-grade concertina wire is being stretched across key entry points like a battlefield, while soldiers provide transportation, intelligence, and tactical support to Border Patrol. And now, the skies are being weaponized too. On February 3rd and 4th, a U.S. Air Force RC-135 rivet joint flew over the Gulf of California, monitoring cartel movements from international airspace. This isn't just some surveillance plane. It's a high-tech spy machine capable of intercepting cartel communications, tracking smuggling routes, and gathering critical intel on operations south of the border. And this is just the beginning. Pentagon officials have hinted that more drones, spy planes, and even manned aircraft could soon be patrolling the skies.
The Defense Department has been helping on the border for decades, just not at the level that President Trump has charged us with right now. Because we believe, and he believes, that border security is national security.
And if that wasn't enough, Trump has revived a nightmare from his first term, Guantanamo Bay. On February 4th, a C-17 Globemaster III took off from El Paso, Texas, carrying the first group of detained migrants to Guantanamo Bay, Cuba, the same facility that has housed terrorism suspects for decades. A dozen people were on board, and this is just the beginning. Trump's January 29th executive order has set the wheels in motion to expand the Migrant Operations Center at Guantanamo to full capacity. The Pentagon has already deployed 150 Marines to prepare tents capable of holding 1,000 migrants, with more troops on the way. And Trump, he's unapologetic.
We have 30,000 beds in Guantanamo to detain the worst criminal illegal aliens threatening the American people. Some of them are so bad we don't even trust the countries to hold them because we don't want them coming back, so we're going to send them out to Guantanamo.
And Trump's executive orders just keep rolling in. Now, every undocumented migrant is banned from entering the U.S. Border Patrol agents have been given a chillingly simple directive: turn them away. No hearings, no asylum process, no exceptions. Biden's 2024 policy already made it harder to seek asylum. If migrants didn't go through official entry points or book an appointment on CBP-1, they were out of luck. In September, those restrictions got even tighter. But Trump isn't just tightening restrictions, he's slamming the door shut. The U.S. Refugee Resettlement Program gutted. Under Biden, over 100,000 refugees were granted entry in 2024, the highest number since 1995. Trump killed that immediately. And then there's the Biden-era parole program, which let in 30,000 migrants per month from Cuba, Haiti, Nicaragua, and Venezuela on humanitarian grounds. Trump axed it without hesitation. And now, Remain in Mexico is back. The Migrant Protection Protocols, MPP, one of Trump's most infamous policies, is back in full force. Under this program, asylum seekers aren't just turned away, they're stranded in Mexico, forced to wait in some of the most dangerous border cities in the world. 71,000 people were left in limbo the first time Trump pulled this stunt. And when immigration advocates warned of catastrophic consequences, they were right. Because when Trump forced thousands of desperate people to wait in Tijuana, Matamoros, and Ciudad Juarez, the cartels were waiting too. These gangs have been making billions off human misery, charging migrants thousands to smuggle them across the border, only to kidnap, extort, and traffic them instead. And when Remain in Mexico trapped thousands in cartel territory, business was booming. Stranded, defenseless, and invisible, migrants became easy targets, kidnapped right off the streets, held for ransom, while their families in the US were forced to pay for their lives. Some never made it out. Others, they weren't just robbed, they were swallowed whole by the cartel machine. Desperate for food, shelter, or even just survival, they were forced into drug running, human trafficking, and cartel warfare. And as thousands remained trapped, violence skyrocketed in border towns. Cartel wars over smuggling routes and migrant shelters turned entire cities into battlegrounds. Mexican law enforcement, outgunned, outnumbered, and sometimes in on the game. Then, Biden came in and shut it all down, letting asylum seekers wait inside the US while their cases played out. But that victory was short-lived. Texas and Missouri took him to court, arguing he killed the policy illegally. A Texas judge put Remain in Mexico back on the table, and even when Biden's team pushed the fight all the way to the Supreme Court, they lost. So, Biden brought it back, begrudgingly, promising to make it more humane. But let's be real, for the thousands of asylum seekers left stranded in cartel-controlled hellholes, there was nothing humane about it. And this time, it's going to be even worse. Now, desperation is at an all-time high. Migrants are scrambling to avoid deportation, while the cartels, bleeding billions thanks to Trump's border crackdowns, are feeling the pressure. And they're not the type to take a financial hit lying down. They're getting desperate, dangerously desperate. So desperate, in fact, that they've turned to social media as their newest weapon, using platforms like TikTok to track, target, and intimidate US officials. The cartels aren't just watching from the shadows anymore. They're arming up and preparing for war. According to a classified US memo cited by the New York Post, cartel leaders are stockpiling weapons and drones to target US Border Patrol agents and military personnel. They see the growing crackdown as a direct attack on their empire, and they're ready to strike back.
That cartel operatives have actually been given permission to shoot at U.S. Border Patrol agents because of their response to this fighting within the Sinaloa cartel.
Border agents have been ordered to stay sharp, keep their weapons visible, and wear bulletproof vests at all times. Any drone activity? Report it immediately. Intelligence teams in El Paso are already on high alert.
That the cartels authorize the use of weaponized drones, explosives against CBP personnel and U.S. law enforcement down there at the southern border. Now, they're actually being encouraged, of course, to remain cognizant and vigilant, but they're also being encouraged to use their long arms, Blake. I have never seen this in a CBP memo before. They say, wear your ballistic gear, yes, but they're telling them, hey, have your long arms. Yes, they are saying, watch out for these weaponized drones.
Cartel shootouts are no longer rare, they're routine. On January 28th, cartel operatives brazenly opened fire on U.S. Border Patrol agents near Fronton, Texas. Chilling footage shows them using migrants as human shields, while others hunker down on an island between Mexico and the U.S., a perfect vantage point for an ambush. And it's getting worse. Near Brownsville, cartel enforcers are rigging roadways with explosives. Smuggling and bribery were just the beginning. Now, they're treating this like open warfare. Meanwhile, in Washington, Senator Mike Lee is calling for drastic measures. He wants private security firms and trained civilians to reinforce the front lines where law enforcement is overwhelmed. He's also pushing to strip the cartels of their power, seizing their boats, vehicles, cash, gold, anything that fuels their bloody empire. But the cartels have another weapon, one more insidious than bullets or bombs. They're taking the fight online. Instagram, TikTok, Telegram. These platforms have become a megaphone for cartel propaganda. They flaunt stacks of cash, luxury cars, gold-plated guns, painting themselves as untouchable kings. And the worst part? People eat it up. Young, desperate, or just reckless. Some see the cartel lifestyle as something to chase rather than fear. It's not just for show though. Recruitment, intimidation, trafficking, drug sales, social media is now a tool for organized crime on a global scale.
Put it out there and it's shared so many times that you could strike out 99% of the time. All you need is that 1% of the time.
And while the teens may think they're signing up for a big payout,
It may be easy money for a short term, but the long-term consequences, you're bound to get caught.
Now, cartel leaders are using these platforms to turn migrants against U.S. agents. They're encouraging illegal migrants to harass border officers, spitting on them, urinating in their vehicles, even defecating inside patrol units. It's all part of the chaos. Because the more distracted, overwhelmed, and demoralized U.S. forces become, the easier it is for the cartels to keep their empire intact.
But these threats right now that we got our hands on, they're being taken seriously enough by CBP.
Negocio en estos días. ¿Cómo va? ¿Ocupado? ¿Lento?
Siempre hay mucha demanda.
They even let reporters get a first-hand look. Freshly smuggled American guns, fentanyl shipments ready to flood U.S. streets, and a safe house stacked with migrants waiting to be trafficked across the border. And here's the kicker. The very weapons these cartels use, most of them come straight from the U.S. According to Mexico's Department of Foreign Relations, up to 90% of firearms in Mexico were originally bought in the U.S. and smuggled south. The irony is almost poetic.
Sabemos que Estados Unidos es fácil encontrar, se las venden en tiendas. Aquí en México tú no encuentras eso. Tienes que llevar un registro pero muy delicado. No a cualquiera se le aprueba de este tipo de armas y a no cualquiera se las venden o les dan la licencia. En Estados Unidos, sí.
So while Washington talks about sending special forces into Mexico, the cartels are unfazed.
Ya están aquí. Tienen mucho tiempo aquí. Han estado trabajando directamente, han entrenado personas aquí.
¿Y no hace alguna diferencia?
No. La verdad es que si no está uno, va a llegar otro. Esto no se va a acabar.
The message is clear. This isn't a war the U.S. is just starting. It's a war that's already been raging, and the cartels aren't scared. But what do you think? Do you believe the U.S. can actually get ahead of this new cartel threat? Or is it already too late? Are we looking at a full-blown digital war spilling onto our streets? Drop your thoughts in the comments. And if you thought this was wild, just wait until you see what we've got coming up next. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell so you never miss out on our latest videos.